Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based video channel where I try to open your eyes and ears up to some of the travails and tribulations that take place throughout our cities, our states, our country, and sometimes around the world. And this one is straight out of St. Louis, Missouri, and its court system and what is going on down at St. Louis City Hall. It is showing up. There is a lot of chaos and disruption taking place in St. Louis City Jail, and it is sounding very similar to what's taking place in Fulton County, Georgia, where the prosecuting attorney, Fani Willis, has had several missteps in her trying to prosecute President-elect Trump. There's been several mysterious deaths that have taken place in Fulton County jails under the watchful eye of Sheriff Labatt, and there has been a lot of chaos and disruption in St. Louis City. A year or two ago, we had the St. Louis prosecuting attorney, Kim Gardner, who had multiple issues with how she was adjudicating her office and position, very similar to Fani Willis, and she's been in some trouble and has left the office. There were 1,000 cases, court cases, and people in jail that had not had their day in court. There was a backlog. Also, you've had multiple suspicious deaths at St. Louis City Jail, and we've had two woman and a man to die suspiciously within the last month in St. Louis City Jail, while during the entire time we have the St. Louis Jail Commissioner, Ms. Jennifer Clemens Abdullah, who has not been on the job for the last 3 months, and there is speculation and pontification on where her whereabouts are while she's supposed to be overseeing the St. Louis City Jail and the chaos and the craziness that has taken place. We've had at least one riot. There's been several assaults, all under the watchful eye of the St. Louis Commissioner, Jennifer Clemens Abdullah, along with the St. Louis City Sheriff, Vernon Betts, who has just lost his office, his seat, and his job. These are elected positions. The St. Louis City Sheriff's Office is an elected position. I tell my viewers all the time, it's very important to know your city and state politics and legislature, probably more important than the U.S. or federal or the presidential election. City politics will affect you and the laws each and every day. So let's get into what in the world is going on with the now defunct St. Louis Sheriff Vernon Betts, who lost his position as the St. Louis Sheriff. He has to give that seat up in January, but he does not want to help the person that just took his position. So you have this fight going on with Vernon Betts, who's an older black gentleman, and this young guy, Sheriff-elect Alfred Montgomery, young black male, who is going to be the predecessor to Vernon Betts' sheriff position, and Vernon Betts does not want to help him. What in the world is happening with our politicians and our adults today? We're setting a very poor example. So let's get into it. St. Louis Sheriff Vernon Betts says he's denying his successor help with the transition of power. St. Louis Sheriff Vernon Betts and his successor, Sheriff-elect Alfred Montgomery, just can't get along. After a contentious primary, Montgomery alleges that Sheriff Betts is blocking his efforts to transition into office before his official swearing in on January 1st. In addition, Montgomery says communication with Betts' office has been sporadic and Betts won't speak with him directly. As I look at it, Democrat Biden and Republican Trump are transitioning their office, he said. If they can do it, why can't two Democrats in the local city of St. Louis do it as peacefully as the presidency? Montgomery the new sheriff-elect, said his administration must be allowed to begin the transition process in order to learn the office's record-keeping system. For example, hire additional sheriff's deputies and ensure the 22nd Judicial Circuit doesn't have a lapse in public safety. Montgomery, a 27-year-old Democrat, captured nearly 86% of the vote in the general election, handily defeating Libertarian candidates Joy Denise Dabney. In August, Montgomery narrowly unseated Betts in the Democratic primary after a tumultuous race that led to a recount, bitter verbal jabs, and threats of violence to each other. Unbelievable. And these supposed to be professional people. The St. Louis Sheriff's Office is responsible for the security of the 22nd Judicial Circuit Court and the transportation of prisoners between the courts and detention facilities. In addition, the office serves court papers and eviction notices, carries out land tax sales, and issues concealed carry permits. Those are some of the responsibilities of that office. Montgomery had worked as a deputy in the sheriff's office in 2019 before Betts fired him when he announced he was running for sheriff. So they had worked together. Montgomery had worked under Sheriff Betts. He fired him in 2019 when he first ran against Betts. Montgomery lost against Betts in the 2020 Democratic primary. Notably, Betts was also fired as a deputy sheriff in 2011 when he announced a run against then longtime sheriff James W. Murphy. So this gentleman has been fired twice from the sheriff's office because he wanted to run for the sheriff's position. Got fired twice. You talk about retribution and I'm going to get you by any means necessary. So he got fired by Betts in 2020 for running for the sheriff's position. And then he got fired in 2011 for running for the sheriff's position under a different sheriff, James W. Murphy. So his resilience, he got fired twice, he ran twice, and his third time he beat Vernon Betts. Betts insists Montgomery has no official role in the St. Louis Sheriff's Department until he officially takes the helm in January. And he is not interested in speaking to Montgomery ahead of that date. And remind you, Vernon Betts is at least a 65-year-old man. He says, and this is a 27-year-old Montgomery. You're talking about an elder and a young person, and this gentleman, Sheriff Vernon Betts, is setting a poor example after he lost the race, and he won't even help this young man that looks just like him prepare him for the sheriff's department. He said, I'm the sheriff until December 31st. He said, there's nothing to talk about. Transition proceedings. There's no local or state law that requires a transition for the sheriff's office. It's more of a best practice. It's fairly common simply because of the need and or desire to make government function as effectively as possible, said David Kimball, University of Missouri St. Louis political science professor. It shows respect for the democratic process that you acknowledge the person that won the election and try in a small way to help them start their term. Some elected officials say the community can be detrimentally impacted without a smooth transition. Remember, this is the sheriff's office, transporting prisoners, protecting the courtrooms. This is what that position is all about. And safety, public safety, is at the precipice of this position. And Vernon Betts does not want to help Mr. Montgomery at all. Is he just worried about himself, or is he worried about the public safety of St. Louis? In 2020, Republican attorney Joe Cervantes unseated incumbent Democrat Mike Carr to serve as the Southern Illinois-based Jackson County's top prosecutor. But Cervantes said Carr completely emptied the offices and refused to speak to him about pending cases. It put me back several months, said Cervantes, who has served in the seat for the past 4 years. When I look back, there are still things that could have been explained to me a little better. he says, better that I was trying to figure out even a year or two ago. He said that things could have been a little bit better, explained to him that he was trying to figure out even a year or two into his own term. Cervantes is awaiting the result of his race against Democratic opponent Marcia Cascio Hale. The two are in a deadlock. Each has exactly 10,805 votes. The race will likely come down to a final tally of mail-in and provisional ballots. If he is not reelected, Cervantes said he will work with Cascio Hale on a seamless transition between administrations. There's something bigger than the elected office and the position, he said. When you get a good transition, you can start from the very beginning ahead and you're not wasting time. Here's the conflict with Montgomery and Betts. Montgomery claims Betts has barred him from the civil courts building, which holds the sheriff's office. He said getting in early would help his team get familiar with the office's daily operations. In a August 26 voicemail obtained by St. Louis Public Radio, a captain informed Montgomery that Betts would not entertain the idea of anyone coming in until after the November election. But Montgomery said nothing has changed since the election. We don't want to start on day one not knowing what we're doing, Montgomery said. We don't want to go in blindfolded. Montgomery plans to raise the base salary for sheriff's deputies to $42,000, which he says requires reviewing employment records in the building. Government employee pay is public information, but Montgomery said there are no comprehensive records of deputies' pay online. However, courthouse security has stopped Montgomery and his team from entering the building to look up records. Montgomery is the new sheriff-elect. He said the sheriff's office staff said a court injunction prevented Montgomery from entering the building, but could not provide the documents. Betts told STLPR, St. Louis Public Radio, that no such injunction was ever filed and said he never blocked Montgomery from entering the building, pointing to a walkthrough of the courthouse on Thursday that Montgomery attended. The incoming sheriff confirmed his visit. His lies are so fantastic, Sheriff Betts said, alleging Montgomery was psychotic and a pathological liar. Montgomery, you've been in the building 1,000,000 times. What are you talking about? Betts criticized the incoming sheriff's appearances in the building, saying they create tension among the staff. He said Montgomery should keep a low profile, as Betts said he did after he won his election in 2016 when Sheriff Murphy retired. Mr. Montgomery goes in and out of the civil courts building like he's the sheriff, he said. I got some enemies walking around here and he knows that, and they're on his side. Sheriff Betts admits there could be some benefits in a transition process, but alleges Montgomery has harassed him during the primary. I would be willing to sit down with Mr. Montgomery if Mr. Montgomery was a nice fella, but Mr. Montgomery has dragged my name through the mud. Montgomery rebukes those claims, and Betts did not provide STLPR any proof of harassment. Mr. Montgomery has lied from the beginning about everything there is to lie about as it relates to him becoming the sheriff of the city of St. Louis, Sheriff Betts said. He's a pathological liar, he's a troublemaker, and you'll see the city of St. Louis is going to get what they asked for. That's what Sheriff Betts said about the incoming sheriff-elect, Mr. Montgomery. Montgomery hopes Betts will have a change of heart and work with his team on a smooth transition. If not, he fears his office and the community will feel the consequences and suffer from a public safety standpoint. He said the city will suffer, the 22nd Circuit will suffer, and that's the bottom line. We can build from the ground up, but it's going to take a lot of time and more money on the city's dime. What in the world is going on with these two individuals? And as I said to you earlier, Sheriff Vernon Betts, I don't know his exact age, but he looks and appears to be at least in his 60s. This young man, 27-year-old Mr. Montgomery, who has been in the sheriff's department on at least 2 separate occasions for a few years, knows that office, and it's almost like old lion versus young lion. And what is an old lion supposed to do? Prepare that young lion to become a great lion in a real sense, a great protector, a great stalker of its prey to provide food to the pride. And that's supposed to be a passing of the torch. That old lion is supposed to teach that young lion all the skills to navigate its way through the jungle or wherever the lion lives. That's what an old lion is supposed to do to prepare the young lion. And in this situation, Vernon Betts is worried about his own personal vendetta against Mr. Montgomery and is willing to put the sheriff's department in a very tempestuous scenario where public safety for not only prisoners, for the courtrooms, for people there in the city jail. It's bad enough that St. Louis City Jail is understaffed with correctional officers. There is a ton of chaos and disruption that's going on in our city and county courtrooms. And for Mr. Betts, the sheriff now, who's not willing to even speak to the new sheriff-elect Montgomery, what is that going to say for our court system in the city of St. Louis? These two are having a personal fight. When you take a public office position where you're elected, you're supposed to be there for the public, not your personal vendetta or your personal issues. And I think Mr. Betts, the sheriff that's there now that just lost, is making a huge mistake by taking his personal grievances and his arrogance over the public's safety for the people of St. Louis. This is a very sad commentary. Hopefully the mayor or somebody can come in and force Vernon Betts to have some kind of relationship or transition period for Mr. Montgomery so the sheriff's department can have a clean transition and can be up to par on January 1 and running in a sound fiscal way. They need to hire more sheriffs. There's a lot of other things that are going on. They need to control their budget. They need to make sure that public safety is in the right order for the St. Louis City Jail. They need to analyze who is going to be the next St. Louis Jail Commissioner. They have somebody acting and operating like that now that Miss Jennifer Clemens Abdullah has not been seen for 3 months and has even put her house up for sale. They have a young lady, Tammy Ross, who's acting as the jail commissioner as we speak. So there's a lot going on. And at some point, the mayor of St. Louis needs to tip her head in and see what's going on in the sheriff's department and the jail system in the city of St. Louis. Fulton County, Georgia is in the same mess. There have been several deaths under the watchful eye of Sheriff Labatt in the Fulton County jails. We also know that there's tons of debacles that are taking place under the watchful eye of the prosecuting attorney, Fannie Willis, and her office. We have to look in the mirror and get our things together. If you're in a public position, you're supposed to be there to protect the public and not invade your personal grievances or issues into that public space. Tell me what you think. This has been the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth.